Welcome to the Sound Underground at Heid Music. We are honored to have the illustrious Them Coulee Boys, who are bringing some beautiful bluegrass sounds to the Appleton Beer Factory tonight. Hopefully you made it to their show, heard wonderful things about the turnout, and that it is a sold-out show. So thanks for being here, guys. Excited you're in Appleton.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, happy to be here. We love Appleton.
Well, we love bluegrass in Appleton, and myself and some of our teammates are already familiar with you guys, and particularly some of your records that have been hyped up during like Mile of Music and things like that. So like, Namesake, of course, is one that's big in the area. And well, let's talk about some of the record making, because you guys have even like recently done the sort of revisitation thing of re-recording, re-performing some of your stuff. Can you talk about what led to that as sort of a celebration that was worth delivering to the fan base?
Well, last year we celebrated 10 years as a band, which if you'd asked any of us, I don't know if when we started this band, if we would have lasted 10 years. I really don't know if that was ever on the table. So in celebrating that, we thought it'd be really cool to revisit some old songs, because our first records, I mean, it used to just be just me, Beau, and Jens. And, over the years we've added Neil and Stas. So it was cool to like revisit them with a 5-piece, because we made these songs for a really long time.
To just take some of the old songs but the first time we recorded, we had to not play too loud, otherwise dogs would start barking. We'd have to stop recording for 10 minutes. So it was really nice to record some of those songs where we're in like an actual studio and not having to worry about outside noise factors like that.
So there's been lineup growth over the evolution of them. And with, I'm not going to just recite stuff off of the website bio. People should go visit your website and follow all the different social media presences. We'll have those all as links in the description for people to consume all the Coulee Boys they can. But just for clarity of our interview today, I feel like now I should rewind a little bit and let's do some introductions for the people so they know. Especially, so Soren, as you were saying, the three of us, let's start with Soren and then kind of wind around and who you are, what you do in the band.
My name is Soren Staff. I play guitar and I sing, and I write the songs.
I'm Beau Janke. I play banjo and I dance.
I'm Soren Staff. I play mandolin and I drive.
That is an important role.
I'm Stas Hable, and I just know how to play drums.
I'm Neil Krause. I play bass.
Well, so with that change in lineup, and especially with the 10 Years Tall. So aside from even just the revisiting old songs and giving them a chance to kind of have some new life with the 5-person lineup, in the lineup change as it kind of organically happened, what sort of chicken or the egg, what kind of came first as far as the songwriting changes? Was it, I want to expand more, we want to have more sounds, let's bring in some people, or was it, let's bring in some people, boy, we got people, we got extra rhythm section, we got extra beats. Let's write for it.
It really was, in my head, Beau bringing an electric banjo to the sessions when we recorded our album Dancing in the Dim Light way back in 2015. Like, you hadn't had that for a long time. And when you started bringing those to our practice sessions, that was like, oh, okay, instead of just us being a string band, we could do something else. And, obviously, like, adding these guys to it, but can you talk a little bit about, like, why you even got the electric one? Or
I don't remember. Yeah, but I don't remember why I got it. It was like 17 years ago. I got an electric banjo for Christmas. And then I think it's because none of my heroes were banjo players. All my heroes were electric guitar players. Like, Jimmy Page is probably my biggest hero, and then for electric guitar. And I've always liked him. So I wanted to be like him, but I wanted to play banjo still, because I thought banjos were cool. We stopped being afraid of we pigeonholed ourselves, basically, because we were afraid to change. We were afraid of how the audience might think about how Them Coulee Boys would be if we changed our sound, because they were liking what we were doing at that time, and we were afraid to grow, basically. We wanted to keep it the same. It's like, no, we're not. There were like rules that we placed on ourselves, like, no, we're not allowed to add drums, and no, we're not allowed to have a synthesizer, and no, we're not allowed to have
a fuzz bass solo.
Anything, fuzz bass solo, yeah. So we started doing stuff like that little by little, and like we still have some rules, like there's just some rules that we have, but we're not above trying anything, and we're not, and I think that we've grown and our fans have grown with time, and they've sounded like, our records have sounded like whenever they were made. Like, so Namesake sounds like 2000. Yeah, and like our most recent record sounds like it was made last year, and that makes sense because we're kind of going with influences, and we like to listen to new music, and we change. That's that. We change, and we just started embracing it and not worrying about how it was going to sound on stage, and not worrying about the reception of the audience. It's not that we don't care about them. It's more like, if we're into it, and we've been into it for the past 10 years, and that's been working, we can trust that our audience is going to be into it too, or they're going to follow us into this new business.
People can sniff out if you care about something, and I think that's something that's always been at the core of what we do, is like, we want to be sincere about it. We want to be, all in with this stuff. So if we're all in with this different sound or pushing it in this direction, I think that resonates with fans, even if it's not something we're aiming for. Like, people smell that and they go, okay, yeah. Like, I'll support the band that believes in what they do. And I think our belief in ourselves is like a big part of why we've been so successful.
And it's taken a lot of courage to say, like, no, we can do that 4-part song, and we can make it happen in one take, and we can practice our butts off and make it work. But again, it's courage. It's a leap of faith sometimes, because it's like, that seems like something only professionals do. And it's like, well, why can't we do that? So we did. That's kind of how the whole band started. Is like, we watched them and then we said, why can't we do that? Whopping us nothing right now. So we did.
Somewhere along the way, we became professionals.
Yeah, something.
Sort of.
Well, boy, everything you just said gave me a lot of potential springboards to just totally ADD out from and diverge. The one I want to go all the way back to, that you both kind of, Beau and Soren, you both kind of touched on, that's kind of right now in a bit of the more broader pop culture zeitgeist, is a lot of the Rick Rubin interviews and books coming out right now where he's talking about this idea that you both kind of just said, where you have to be first and foremost making something for yourself that you would consume, that you would listen to, that you would enjoy, because anything less than that is by definition inauthentic, and as you said, will be sussed out by listeners as whether they can put their finger on it or not. They can sense the non-committal nature of it. And so now with that, kind of marrying it into this, well, I mean, when I introduced you, I said bluegrass, and there is this, for better or for worse, as you said, there are some rules, conventions, a culture within certain genres and subgenres of music, for better or for worse, that come with, at best, like senses of community and belonging and camaraderie, at worst become like gatekeeping. Has, by and large, your experience of kind of growing and pushing your own boundaries of both like skill and creativity with what is bluegrass, how has that been overall as far as listener support and being embraced by crowds?
I think within the first couple songs, if we're a new fan, at least, I think within the first couple songs, you're going to realize that, like, if you came to see a bluegrass band, in the traditional sense, that's not the show you're going to get. And I think most people will just I'll be like, okay, understand that, and then embrace it, and then just switch over. Like, at least that's how I see it happening. It's just people like, oh, I thought this was bluegrass. Actually, I like it. I'll stick around and watch the whole thing, kind of thing. And then we'll keep coming back, and they'll get hooked.
That's our thing, is we try to be more accessible than just bluegrass. We just try to be accessible to musicians. Our songs should be accessible to everyone in the crowd that night. And it might be, this song might be more for you, and this song might be more for that person. We try to do that as much as we can, because we're all very different.
Yeah, I mean, in a sense, being someone who writes the songs, looking at all of these guys, I know they all have different influences and different places that they pull from. So I like to write songs that show off, this kind of thing or that kind of thing. And I think something that we do excel at when you come to a show of ours is it's not all one thing. If that song tickled this itch, cool, maybe we'll play another one like that. But if that song wasn't your thing, don't worry, we're going to do a whole bunch of different things this whole set. And I think, there's a welcoming part of that. And then just to circle back a little bit to about this traditional bluegrass and the tension there. Like, one thing that I will say is that, before we, really jumped into that scene, we heard all about that tension and the pushback. And then we've just been embraced by that scene for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Like, say what you will about it. Like, I think the bluegrass community, is very welcoming and just celebrates music and is rabid for music in a way that I think other genres just don't have the. I mean, like, you've been in more traditional bluegrass bands for longer than this. Yeah,
there are definitely some circles of bluegrass that do want to keep it traditional, and we do not get invited to those spaces very much, if at all. But overall, it's become much more of an umbrella, especially here in the Midwest, where it's more of a folk Americana scene as a whole, and bluegrass is just a piece of that. So that's what people are looking for. They'll find a little bit of it with us, but if they're looking for any of those other aspects, they're going to find that.
And I think that bluegrass fans are like super loyal to. So whatever you did 10 years ago, you got people along. So,
now we're just tricked them.
Yeah.
Hey, it's a rock band now, guys. Sorry. Yeah.
But that's such a beautiful thing to be able to do, though, for both yourselves and for people who are coming and going out to see live music and want to, and came ready. Like, came expecting something, but also ready for a ride and are looking to maybe explore themselves, explore what they're capable of ingesting and growing from too. So a couple times it has come up as far as the songwriting process, basically Soren. So can we dissect that more? What does that look like? What do you walk in the room with finished as far as like, I've got all the lyrics, I've got the form, I've got the key, I've got everything, I've got basically everybody's parts, like what do you bring into the room and how does it distill out and become Them Coulee Boys?
Right. Most of the time I'll have the words, the melody. I like to call it like a skeleton of a song. I got the stuff that I need. If somebody said go play the song on a stage, I could do it. But, the beauty of being in a band, I'll say this. When you're operating as this solo artist, you don't have to compromise anything. There's nothing you got to give up at all. And that's kind of one of the hard parts of being in a band is once I bring these songs to these guys, you lose some of that exactness that it was when it created, but you gain everything that these guys have. And that's why it works. I mean, we would not exist if it was just me, because I have this small way of doing things, and then I'm able to, I trust these guys fully to incorporate what they want to, and then they push it in a way better direction. So I think that's the beauty of a band. There's the singularness is lost, and sometimes I mourn that, but the camaraderie and the creative energy of 4 other people puts these creations in a whole different stratosphere than they ever would have existed in. Yeah.
There's a line that we say a lot in our writing sessions and practices of, hey man, if it was my song, I would not do that, but the 4 of you like it, so move on. This kind of thing is the honesty and the trust between each other. We're hey, I fully disagree, but the 4 of you are good with it, and then we're going to move on, and we'll take it as it is and enjoy that song as it is, because I'm not going to convince 4 people to go my way. Kind of.
When it comes down to it, we all just want to make the best song.
Yeah.
And I think that's something we remember whenever it's a little awkward.
I'm resisting, I have to say it now, but I've been resisting bringing up just things I'm hearing you guys say that feels very analogous to a particular band I'm in right now, that similar to being bluegrass, folk, Americana adjacent. The band I'm thinking of that I'm in is Irish and punk adjacent, but similar to how you described, we push that boundary a lot. We kind of ask a lot of our listeners, because we'll do a jig, but we'll also do something that sounds like it belongs on a Maiden record. And singer will turn to us and be like, when did we turn prog? Well, hey, it's okay. There's a mandolin solo. It's still Irish. But I can definitely hear it's neat that it's such a similar experience to even the songwriting you're talking about, where it is that thing of there is a degree of committee that has to come into of this band makes songs that even for our willingness to be expansive, there is still a checklist of things that make it a Them Coulee Boys song. And I'm I'm sure there's times where it's even been like, this is a cool song, this is not a Them Coulee song. So along with the in the band collaborative process, when you guys did Namesake and had a bit more of an infamous producer to work with.
Infamous.
Infamous for what reason?
I just like saying infamous because it makes people go, ooh. Brian Joseph is an if you know, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Without being too Rolling Stone about it, what was it like? But very seriously, like what is that process like compared to self-producing most of the time?
Well, we've had other producers. We've only had, I guess, one other producer, Dave Simonette from Trampled by Turtles. And
Oh yeah, that was the record after, right?
before, so it was called Happy. And we made that at Packader Studios, and that was really, that was kind of a moment of where, that was when I felt like a professional musician. I was, for whatever reason, a professional musician in that time. But yeah, Brian was a different thing altogether because he felt like a sixth member of the band, and he felt like he was helping us make decisions and calling shots and saying, he was brave enough to say like, hey guys, that sounds dumb. Let's not play that part. Let's change that a little bit. And he was calling some shots, and it was he still made it democratic, but also just challenged us so much more in that record than we had been in other records by any sort of other party. So it was really helpful to have just another party saying this instead. And like, he's extremely talented. He's a giving human being. He's one of my best friends. He's like one of probably all of our closest friends. And like, he's very inspirational. Just like he's love. That's what he is. And sometimes you have to harness him in a way. He's hard to get a hold of, and he's hard to convince of certain things, but it is what it is, and you just gotta take him as he is, and he's amazing, and he's a Grammy award-winning producer, but he's also like a really cool dad. So he's just all sorts of things. Working with Brian is amazing. That's my experience. I can't speak for everybody, but like that was my experience as a band, working the first time with somebody who felt like another member who challenged us in a very way.
He also had a very different flow to his work process. Like if he said, okay, show up tomorrow at 9, we would all get there at, 10 to 9 or 9 o'clock. And then he would take us up to his house and we would have tea and coffee for 45 minutes and just talk about things that had nothing to do with the album, and then after 4 or 5 hours of recording, we would go, okay, beer break time, and we would go walk in the woods for 20 minutes or something. So he was really good at sort of being a game manager for us, making sure that we weren't getting too deep in the weeds or getting too far in our heads to be able to see the big picture. So having someone who's been in that space so many times and seen the falls that can happen and actively encourage us to avoid them was incredibly special too.
Especially coming back to work with him on another record, the record that we're going to be putting out eventually here. We having working with him the first time, we had all this experience, having somebody who would push us in a direction that we wouldn't think. Remember having someone who operated differently than us. The first time around, there was also a little bit of this oh my God, we're working with this guy kind of thing. And part of us, part of me knowing that we were going to be working with him, I wrote songs that maybe I thought fit what he was doing better. Or, in the studio, we were less prone to, fight for our kind of, put our stamp on something because we wanted to defer to this guy who knew what he was doing. So the second time around is kind of fun to see how that dynamic changed a little bit because you still had all the same ways that he operates, but then you had us more comfortable, we were friends now. He was a stranger before, and it was a cool thing to work a second time with him and just see, and we just had more agency in that space to put our little stamp on it. And then he still had his agency to do the same thing, and I think it really, I'm really excited for the new record that we made for sure.
You mentioned working with Dave too, and I don't want to skip over talking about that record and that experience was but especially with what you guys have had to say about the Brian experience and making now another record with him. Compare, contrast. What was that like? What did that feel like with Dave? Because you initially mentioned how for Dave, it was also this kind of a bit of a landmark of, this is the first time we have a producer on the record.
Yeah, it was the first time I was a producer. It was first time working in a world-class studio. Like, the difference is you're working in a West studio, so you're working with what they have. There's not a lot of exploring. They're like, this drum kit works, and this amp works, and it has. And it does. There's nothing wrong with that. It does. But with Brian at his barn, where we are all, it's about the size of this area right here, where we're all about this close, and the drums are right there next to me, and Neo is right next to me, and Jens is right next to me, and Soren is right next to me. We're all right next to each other. We see each other, make eye contact, basically. It's very different. And then also the same thing with miking things. He was just like, Brian would say, like, what do you like? And it's like, sometimes it's annoying, but it also it's just like, I don't know. He's like, just pick one. And it was kind of like, enjoy yourself, be a good musician, and have passion. So that was like the difference. Dave was an amazing cheerleader who made us feel like we were...
Like we belonged.
We belonged within his presence, because for a long time it didn't feel like that. It was just like, oh, how did we do that? How did we get Dave to be in the same room as us? He immediately was like, no, you guys are supposed to be here. This is normal. And that was what we were able to take away from that in a positive way. And yeah, and there was also a great sounding record from a great sounding room, and a really cool, everything about that studio is absolutely amazing. And that was another one where, like, if we were to go there again, like Soren said, we would have some agency, having done this a few more times, to say, like, don't mic it like that, and we're using our drums. Like, we'd have a little more agency. Or, yeah, and like I said, we made friends there, so like, and I wouldn't be afraid to hurt feelings anymore, because again, we know what we're doing at this point. Back then, I would not say we really knew. We didn't know what all the machines were. So yeah, now I think we've done our research and we know what we're up to.
The cheerleader thing is so true. You know, it's like, I think we kind of needed someone to like legitimize what the heck we were doing, because, you know, for the longest time, I think we kind of more saw ourselves as performers as opposed to musicians. And, you know, just to have somebody like Dave that was, you know, like Dave pulled me aside and was like, these songs are incredible, Soren. And it was like, coming from him, it blew my mind, because he's an influence of mine. I mean, like, I've spent hours waiting in line to go see his band play. You know, it's one of those things that at that moment in time of this band, we needed like someone to kind of like pump us up a little. We needed it at that time. We really did.
When it came to the actual recording of the music, Brian wanted to hear every single idea we had for each song, and he wanted to try every single idea we had for each song and try to make it work. Dave did not at all. He was very much like, I trust you guys with this music. You wrote it. You know how you want it to sound. I like what you guys are putting down. Just do it. And he would speak up if there was something that he thought could be enhanced. Or if he saw it get stuck in a rut, he would offer his input. But in that aspect, they were very, very different producers, but both were incredibly valuable.
That's definitely a very, very interesting like contrast of experience. Is to have a producer where the relationship is songs are finished. I'm here to maximize the quality of delivery versus we have songs. I'm here to help you finish them. Yeah. And then delivery is almost arbitrary. Like you said, with the contrast to Brian being less about this mic in this room must be the magic flute that will give us this tone of golden ears. And it's like, no,
it did sound good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that record. Well, and it's interesting because that record sounds incredible.
Both of them do, yeah. It's different.
Yeah, they both sound good. They both do sound very different. Can also definitely relate to the plight of coming in and being like, no, use our drums. Yeah. And you all mentioned agency. Yeah, it's weird at a point when you're kind of like, all right, if you say so. Like,
yeah.
But it's definitely having that cheerleader experience then empowers you and emboldens you and gives you license to have some lines in the sand of your own creativity and your own voice and sound and tone to walk in later and be like, my kid.
Yeah. We needed one to get the other. You know, I mean, like, if we would have got them in a different order, I don't think it would have been good for us. They happened at the right times, for sure.
Dave gave us the confidence to, like, be proud of our music, and Brian gave us the encouragement to push ourselves to places we didn't think we could go.
All right. I feel the need to digress briefly from the deep artistic discussion for a moment. And going back to some off-camera stuff we were talking about before we started. Best food on tour.
I still can't forget last year, Austin barbecue.
Texas barbecue. That's exactly where I went, yeah.
Like, I go to other barbecue places and it's good, but I still think about the place. I don't remember I don't remember the place.
Somewhere in Austin.
But it was close by to where we played. We walked there, and I was like, I still remember that food.
The free brats at Spats during one of these.
Yeah, if we could have
Like these big old Bud Lights. It's like free. But like for best food, probably we played on Cape Cod before. We got a restaurant up there. Somebody paid for our dinner and got like a really, really great seafood platter there.
Speaking of seafood, like all of these things, it's like being on the road as much as we do, we try to connect with like people, family or friends or whatever, and everybody loves to just give us the best food, and like one of my favorite meals that we had was like, I have an uncle who they have a cabin out on like the Puget Sound or whatever out in Washington, and we just like dug up clams off their beach, and he like grilled oysters and stuff. As you can tell, meals are important to this band.
What did you remember?
Pock. Oh, yeah.
Pock.
It's gone now.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like a Thai restaurant in Portland, Oregon that I'm not sure, like it was some specific kind of Thai food like that you don't just find anywhere. But like we were pretty oblivious to what it was, and like it closed during COVID, and every year like I hear famous chefs like talk about how much they miss it. So it's like we were really fortunate to.
Yeah.
The restaurant manager moved to where we live, and now we have a restaurant. It's not Thai food at all. It's charcuterie, and but it's still, that was one of my favorite meals we ever had.
I mean, okay, I know you guys are playing at ABF tonight.
Yeah.
And obvious, wonderful food there.
Yeah.
But since you brought up Thai food, in your previous visits to Appleton for Mile of Music, did you ever partake of a place called Basil Cafe?
No.
If you have time today,
okay,
you should eat at Basil Cafe.
Pretty big Thai head, so yeah.
Here's the thing with us though, like we're very partial to especially in Appleton, the 2 a.m. slice of pizza. So I forget the name.
Sales.
Neil, did you have an answer?
The cookie dough ice cream place. I do genuinely love that. Yeah, the wings at the Beer Factory are fantastic. I get those every time we play them.
Yeah, there definitely is a Venn diagram of sharing music and sharing food.
Buc-ee's on the road right now for whatever reason. Musicians love these.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's a break from the monotony of gas stations.
You can lose your bandmates if you need to get away from them.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm going to go over here by the weird driftwood American flag.
And then you find your bandmates
Buy a branded throw blanket.
Yeah. Your bandmates taking a picture with the mascot. You're like, hey, let me get in there. I miss you.
I wonder then if that's going to become this thing, like generations from now, will that be a weird, like, if you know, of finding branded Buc-ee's merch in people's homes, and you're like, oh, you're either a truck driver or you played in a band.
Yeah.
No truck drivers.
No truck drivers.
No truck drivers allowed.
Semis can't drive in there.
They have like a thing over the entrance where it's like it's too low for a truck driver to get through. Or RVs to get through, yeah. Not allowed. Just seems pretty weird and discriminatory, but also I am in there anyway.
When you guys do longer stints, so kind of a logistics thing and also the financing of it thing, like how do you guys, and we don't have to spend a lot of time on this, it's just something interesting, I think definitely, especially because I know one of the kind of groups of listeners I hope we have for this is younger people or of any age kind of going like, I could do this. Yeah, these guys can do it. I can do this.
Yeah,
like
right.
that word, capital T, touring, is this thing that many a teenager has said out loud in front of their family, much to the eye rolling and like, no, you can't do that. It's got to be a whole thing. So how do you guys do it?
There's a balance, but you got to find a balance with the people that you are with on your level of comfort, especially like sleep, just in terms of like sleeping overnight when you're on a tour. Is I know there's bands out there that still about the same level as us, but they still have every night mapped out with somebody's at somebody's house, sleeping on floors with their whatever camping stuff they bring, which is one way to do it. And like, I think in a perfect world, we would get 2 hotel rooms or 3 hotel rooms a night and spread out. But we're not quite there, but it's just finding what is the lowest level of comfort that you can be healthy on the road. I think it's the best way to put it. And like,
you immediately went to like, it's really rough and uncomfortable.
Well, no, I was just like saying, you can do shoestring on and sleep on floors as much as you want, but we did that for a little bit, and we've learned over time that that's not for us anymore.
Well, I think you nailed the bigger part there is that it has to be what is the agreed upon.
Yes,
because there's always somebody who's like, whatever, I'll sleep in the trunk. Like, everybody's got every band has that person who's like, whatever. Is there Is there some degree of comfort, cover from being wet?
Yeah.
Great. I'm happy.
Well,
but then there's somebody else who's like, I need silence. I need a white noise machine. I need a shower in the morning. Like, and you have to find
the happy medium.
Yeah.
But as far as like making it happen, like how the heck do you actually make it happen in the first place? It really does take a team. If you want to go out, you want to like tour, you got to have the right people in your band that want to go do that. You got to have the right agent manager who's going to put you in the right spots, because we definitely played some places we didn't need to back in the day when we were trying to do it ourselves. And that could be backbreaking, like being put in the right position, playing the right shows makes it easier. But like, that's the thing of having done it for 10 years. Like we've found a way to operate to make it as comfortable as it can be. Like we have, these kind of amenities. We all sit in the same spots in the van every time. It's like there's little idiosyncrasies to all that stuff that like really the only way I think you make it work is like communicate with your bandmates, and it's got to be a one for all kind of thing.
But if you're talking about setting up shows like that, anybody can do that. And you were talking about your younger listeners. Anybody can get onto a computer.
Right.
There's so many places and then you go to a big city, or as we call them markets. So you look up Appleton, then you look up Appleton music venues, and you just start emailing them. And if they don't answer, they don't answer. But if they do, try to play there. Ask them what open dates they have. And then it's like, look at, 100 miles away. What's 100 miles away? Ask that place. Hey, and then just start setting up a tour. That's not super stressful, and you're not going to get paid. That's not what any of us are. We're not like, if you're a musician for the money, you're in the wrong line of work. Don't do that. Yes, it can make you a living, but if you're doing it to live, don't do that. That's not what this is for. So, yeah.
The other thing to remember is capital T touring doesn't mean, just because you're touring doesn't mean you have to drive out and do 12 dates in California and then go over to the East Coast and do 12 dates on the East Coast. Like, you can tour in the Midwest, you can just slowly branch out instead of just like shooting all over. Yeah, spiral.
Spiral out. That's the way that we go out there. But we have built a crowd like this, where we started in this one spot, and then we radiused and radiused and radiused. And now we have we have pretty great followings, and that make us feel special in this much bigger radius around that one spot. And it's really incredible. And we just keep growing and growing and growing, and enough people hear about it. And you have to remind yourself constantly how grateful you are, because sometimes it can be a slog. If you tell yourself, yeah, I do have like the coolest job in the world, it is, then maybe you can do it for one more day. Like today, it doesn't have to be your last day.
One more day.
No, and I think, we're lucky that, or at least I was lucky to join the band when you guys were like actually making some money doing like touring. But even if you're not really making a ton of money, like I always look at it as just like, if I can make it work financially, it's just a great way to travel. And like, I know we always make priority to like stop at a national park if we're on the way, or like sometimes splurge on good food, because like those things are important too. Like you don't want to miss those things, especially as far as like, I think like the most important thing to performing music well is like headspace and being in like just being happy, which I think that also goes back to like when we were talking about like Brian. Like I think Brian Joseph was like phenomenal for like putting us all in a good headspace. That's why Neil was talking about he'd bring us out in the woods or whatever. And with like practicing is important, but the reason why like good venues need to have a good green room is because like we had a phenomenal green room yesterday. Like it just makes you happy. Like when you eat a good meal, like a healthy meal, it makes you happy. When you saw some beautiful mountains or whatever. And like the people that are just touring and just hoofing it and just doing the most like doing no comforts at all, like you can really suffer like when you're actually playing the show.
Yeah, it's really hard to make playing music not fun, but people have found a way.
They have found a way.
Yeah.
There are high highs and there are very, very low lows, and you gotta push through those. They're inevitable. Just keep your head up, try again tomorrow.
But yeah, Beau mentioned again that Maslowian idea of it's the coolest job in the world, and it's one of those things where it's like, well shoot. I mean, my 13-year-old son has recently picked up the expression of like, good day playing video games is better than a bad day at school, or whatever thing that you'd rather be doing. So like a bad gig is better than
no
a good day.
Or nobody
fighting with your partner.
Yeah.
Rather be fighting with you.
Yeah.
That idea again of a broader scope of gratefulness that it's like the fact that we're sitting here talking about this in and of itself is like icing on the existential cake. And not to slug into the idea of like there's people who are truly suffering in the world. Yes, there are, but this is not the venue to talk about that. There are smarter people out there to talk about it instead of me. But the fact that we get to talk about this thing that is like the bright spot of somebody's day. Like there's going to be people at your show tonight that this is maybe first time hearing you. This is maybe something they've been waiting for to hear you guys back in town again. Yeah. And it's going to be the highlight of their weekend, maybe their April. And that's something you get to do and get to be privy to giving to people. And now to say something totally silly, like on the heels of that, with like sleep and comfort and on the road and things like that. You know, sleep is important, but you also have things you have to be at on time. What's your favorite ringtone to wake yourself up, like an alarm? Like how do you wake up?
Oh, I almost always wake up before we need to go somewhere. I'm just early enough riser now where I barely need an alarm. So I can't really answer that question.
I can relate to that.
I have one. You have one for sure.
Yeah.
You wake up early.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You used to have the most annoying one.
Because I had to wake up.
He used to set like 10 of them like 5 minutes after each other for an hour long.
I got a new app though that makes me like do math problems in order to like basically you press snooze and then you got 3 minutes to solve all these math problems. And once I've used my brain, it's like, I'm not going back to sleep now if I've done that. So I get up. And I don't know what my ringtone is, but it's like,
it's kind of awful.
I think it's like
evil.
just the digital one. There's just like, dee. That's mine now. I just prefer it. It's not intrusive because I've tried. When I was a kid, I woke up to the song Revolver by Velvet. No, not Velvet. No, Velvet Revolver. And the song was called Slither.
Oh, yeah.
Slash's band.
Yeah.
Scott Weiland, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And like, it was just like, and it's like, and it was like, this is hell. I'm not doing this. I hated getting up like that. I just thought, yeah, I'm going to wake up and just rock it this morning. And the next morning I was like, this is the worst thing I've ever done. So I've kept it pretty digital and then I don't hate a song anymore.
My freshman year in college, me and my roommate thought it'd be really funny to like blast Screamo as our because we wake up at the same time. And like, I got pretty used to it. But it would just be funny because like, you just like, we'd be in our bunks and then somebody would have to jump down from the bunk to turn it off. And it like, we did that for like a month or two. Yeah. And it was pretty gnarly to the point that now when I have it at home, it's just on vibrate. And I could just hear it vibrating on my
that'll wake you up
on my bedstand. So yeah,
that's too funny. That's very much the opposite of you. Like you mentioned, Brian having everybody report so that there's time to like introspect and
we all have
tea and stuff.
Routines. The routine is Neil gets up at 6. I try to get up after Neil gets back from his run.
Yeah.
And then go down. I'll take a shower and go down to the lobby and I will sit and talk to my wife and kid before she goes to school and drops them off at daycare. And then I just kind of sit because I'm awake, drink coffee and work on, I have a little piano. And I work on that and then read books until the other people come down and have breakfast with us. And it's usually when we all have breakfast at some point together. And then we take off at checkout time because we don't have to be to the next venue, which is 2 hours away until 3 o'clock. So we have to kill an hour. That's not enough time to do something cool, but it's just like, yeah. So, but we all have our routines that make our mental health be in check, basically. So, yeah, not great, but in check.
2 other kind of every episode questions that we ask. What's your desert island, end of the world, one piece of gear you own? You can only keep one. Gear. Instruments, instrument, mic, something.
Well, it'd have to be the one I had a custom built mandolin made for me from wood from my mom and dad's land that they own. So I think that's definitely it. You can see it if you come to the show or in pictures and stuff like that. But yeah, I love that thing. If I had one piece of gear that I would bring that we use every day, I think that's the one that I would make sure I bring.
Yeah, it's gotta be I have a Ludwig Black Beauty snare drum, and the amount of times, like, people never, after a show, compliment on my playing. They always compliment me on my snare drum, which I always want to tell them, like, well, maybe it's the way I hit it. That drum is just incredible.
What they're secretly saying is, I wish I had your snare drum.
Yeah.
I'll give Beau more time.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
I have little to no gear, so it'd probably be my guitar because that'd be the most expensive thing. So yeah, I need that. Yeah.
I do not want to be stuck on a desert island with a bass. I'm going to bring my Casio keyboard because I don't play it yet. And that'll keep me from losing my mind.
I'm kind of the same way. Like, I'm not saying I've mastered the banjo, because I definitely haven't, but like, I'd rather bring a piano because I think I could do more than I could with the banjo. So I'd probably bring like a really, probably, if it was my thing, I'd bring the piano that's in my house that I bought my old house, and it came with this piano, and it's the most gorgeous piano. And they were like, we don't really like it. And I was like, you're stupid. It's the piano. It sounds so good. And it's junky, but it's mine.
Well, Neil, you teed up the final, we ask everybody every episode question.
I want to learn how to sing and I want to learn how to play guitar, but recently I've just been obsessed with DJing. Like, partly because it is so like esoteric to me, and I'm always just kind of like, I don't understand what they're doing. And that's kind of why it's just like, I think I understand how a guitar works and how all these other things work, but I don't understand how like electronic music production works. And so that's why it's just captured my interest.
I think it would have to be pedal steel.
Darn, that would be mine too.
You could say that too.
I do. Yeah, but it'd be pedals. Yeah, probably pedal steel. Just because, and then we could share it on stage. We share a piano on stage. He plays sometimes, and I play sometimes on pianos. And I'd like to learn how to use a sequencer in our sets to where like I could program different scenes and things like that we could use and like drum. Actually, I take that back. I want to learn how to play drums so bad.
Mine.
I'm so bad at drums.
Yeah.
And I don't know how people just like sit down and just play them. That's amazing. So yeah, I'd probably want to learn how to play drums.
Yeah, I cannot play drums.
Yeah, always so cool.
Yeah.
He's the person that I watch when we're on stage.
The one thing I can do is tell Stas to play. I go,
So there's a few. In Neil.
Baritone sax.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Rad. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, guys, thank you all so much for coming in.
Yeah.
Any major stuff you'd like us to plug? I mean, you said you got the record coming. Well, the record in progress.
Nothing huge. Just keep an eye. Just come
Keep
to
an eye
our
out.
shows.
We'll be rolling out some music soon enough, so keep an eye out.
You got merch at the shows.
Yeah.
Online.
Yep.
All that's,
And the physical records. Anything distributed on vinyl?
We do. We've had a couple on vinyl. One of them,
Namesake, we have that one in stock right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Others.
it's second pressing, and
That second pressing is pretty cool to say.
But anyways, Them Coulee Boys, thanks again for being here, and thanks for listening to Sound Underground. And make sure to check them out on all the various social platforms. Again, we've got the links in the descriptions. And for more, make sure you subscribe and like and tune in for more episodes.